Hello and welcome to Ryan Watches a Movie. My name's Adam Patterson. With me today we've got Kevin Rakestraw. Hey, Kevin.
Hey.
We're also joined by Ryan Holes. Hey, Ryan. If this is your first time tuning in, Kevin and I are challenging ourselves to find movies that Ryan likes in the hopes that we will reach a coveted 10 out of 10. You can join in on the conversation by sending your movie suggestions for Ryan to podcast@filmpulse.net or by sending me a DM on Twitter @filmpulsenet. If you like the show or even if you don't, please consider checking out Frederick's Taxi, a research alliance at curefa.org. Thank you very much. Ryan, you wanted a sexy comedy. You wanted a sex comedy this week. So what do we have you watch?
Wetlands.
Now, there's a couple things, there's a couple caveats, there's a couple reasons that we gave you Wetlands, but the main thing was we were scrolling through dozens of sex comedies, teen sex comedies, and you either already saw them or they were utter trash. Like there were some 80s ones that I was considering, but they're all pretty bad. Like I was going to give you, I'll just say it because I don't think I'm going to give it to you. I was going to give you Zapped, which stars Scott Baio as a guy who has the ability to, he has like telekinesis and he can like, using his mind, he can like rip off girls' clothes and stuff.
Sweet. Scott Baio makes me laugh.
Oh, nice. Well,
no, that wasn't serious.
I was going to say, that's a weird thing to exclaim. Scott Baio makes me laugh. So anyway, I know that you're not a fan of subtitles, and Kevin and I discussed this, but we're like, what's
the only way forward?
What's the raunchiest? What do we got going on here? What's the raunchiest teen sex comedy we can come up with? The answer was easy. It's Wetlands. This is directed by David Wendt. I have a synopsis here. The adventures of an eccentric girl who has strange attitudes towards hygiene and sexuality longs for the reunion of her divorced parents. Ryan, tell us a little bit about Wetlands.
This girl is obsessed with hygiene, and she's a bit neurotic. And you find out later in the movie it's because her mom was, and her grandma was, and her grandma's mom was. So she gets sterilized because she wants to end the streak of fucked up girls in her family. And then she proceeds to bang everyone randomly on the planet. And for one guy in particular, he prefers the shaved body hair. And she tries to do that and ends up cutting her asshole. And at the same time, she has hernias.
Hemorrhoids.
Hemorrhoids. And she ends up in the hospital. And her plan is to make her mom and dad come and visit her and basically get back together. Meanwhile, she has a friend who is also pretty fucked up, and you eventually find out that she is pregnant, and the main girl thinks her life is over, and I'm sort of confused about the end. Like I saw what's happening, but there's something I had to miss. Okay, I know that she put that thing up her butt to make herself bleed again. And then she was talking to a friend, and they had to pull out near the empty pool. And then she jumped in the pool, but I thought I was going to be it and she was going to die. But then she comes back, and at the end of the movie, looks for her little brother about all these visions and finds out that he has some too, and they embrace, and the movie is over.
Well, to be clear about what you were confused about, the movie jumps around in time, so it's not linear. The most of what you see is flashbacks, so it jumps back and forth with her time in the hospital recovering from this untreated anal fissure that got badly infected, and she had to get off an operation. And
So that's like present day.
yeah, that's present. And then the rest of it, like her with her best friend and all of that stuff, that all happened in the past. And like the stuff, like the stuff with her as a kid and all that stuff.
So when she tries to jump in the empty pool, how does she not die?
Well, I don't specifically remember that, but I think that was just a fantasy. Like not everything is real.
Yeah.
Like some of the stuff is like a fantasy. Like the scene when she's talking about how her mom's biggest fear is getting in an accident and having people see that her underwear is dirty.
That was my favorite part. That part I laugh a lot because I know people like just like that.
The biggest fear is having dirty underwear. Somebody.
I mean, Christ, when I was alive, that man folded his dirty laundry. He was weird. That kind of stuff.
So, what were your initial impressions on Wetlands?
Initially, all right, let's go through a little timeline.
What?
He said, "Let's go through his timeline."
I saw some photos. I thought it was a druid. I was like, oh man, I'm gonna hate this. And like 10 minutes later, I really didn't mind that much. But I do have to say, overall, this movie grossed even me out.
Yes.
I would hope so. I would be so freaked out if you're like, it's not that bad. It's not gross at all.
Europeans would like them and Asians, they're on a different level of like comfortability.
Okay. I want to unpack that a little bit, that comment. Yes, I agree that Europeans are more comfortable with sexuality. I don't necessarily agree that Asians are also more comfortable with it. But in speaking in completely general terms, I think yes, Europeans by and large are more comfortable with sexuality. This movie, however, is way beyond what anyone, regardless of your nationality, is comfortable with. It is very deliberately crossing boundaries.
Some of the time I was laughing. Some of the time I felt like a dirty old man because I was watching like teenagers and handing their vagina. Not quite, but almost. You don't say like part of vagina.
Yeah.
Like penetration, but you see, like, look at the end when she put the thing up her ass. That was almost impossible to watch.
That was, I think the worst part about that scene. So just to step back a little bit, she has the surgery. It's a success. She's recovering, but like her parents aren't back together yet. She feels lost. She feels alone. She sparked up this. She kind of fell for this one nurse, but she saw that the nurse was dating someone else at the hospital, and they sort of got back together. So or at least she thought that. So she was just feeling, I mean, it was an attention grab, really. Like, she wanted more time in the hospital so that she could work on winning this guy and also trying to get her parents back together. So she decided to pop open her stitches. And
Oh boy.
and the way that she did that was she got out of bed, and she kind of, there's like that little crank that makes the bed go up and down. She turned it vertically so the crank was like upright, and then she sat on it really hard. And the sound that it made was the most horrific sound ever. And you just see just blood gushing from her butt.
And the worst part is she didn't yell out in pain at all. She's gotten back in bed with her bloody ass.
Yeah, she covered her mouth. She screamed, but she covered her mouth.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's I find it interesting that was the hardest thing for you. I guess that that is probably the most difficult thing because of the pain involved that you just kind of feel.
At the beginning, when he gives that guy a hand job, and they show a close up of afterwards, that's pretty good. And when she rubs herself all over the toilet scene,
yeah,
that's dirty.
I think, yeah. So within the first 10 minutes of this movie, you're going to be able to gauge whether you're going to be able to stand it or not, because the first 10 minutes are really intense. The toilet scene in particular it's funny, but it's so revolting, where it's like the toilet from Train Spotting. And first of all, there's like 3 inches of water in this public restroom, and it's just straight brown. And she walks into this public restroom in her bare feet, and there's like all kinds of horrible things, all kinds of detritus floating in this bathroom. And she goes into the stall, and it's like the most disgusting toilet in the entire world. And of course, they're going like real close up. They're zooming right into the random horrible stuff that's on this toilet seat.
That, aside from the gross stuff, that camera angle, like, that was something I never saw before. That was kind of cool. Like, when I followed into like under the toilet indoor, I was kind of wondering how they did that.
The camera was like on her butt because they showed her applying hemorrhoid medication, and then she sits down on this toilet seat and does something that's even more horrific on the toilet seat. It's a pretty rough movie. It's funny. It is funny, but it's like, I mean, it takes gross out comedy to a whole new level.
Going back on one thing, Asians, they don't make this kind of movie, but they got like a
zombie ass Toilet of the Dead.
Yeah. they were cool with that.
I mean, yeah, there's weird fetishistic American films too.
A different kind of gross. Like, this was sort of blending a line between real life.
Yeah, I mean, sure, I understand. Like, a lot of these types of movies they're not real. They're not realistic. They do things like zombie ass Toilet of the Dead, and you see like poop, spraying from a woman. Yeah. It's like cartoonish. It's silly. But this movie keeps things very grounded for the most part, other than like the fantasy scenes, and pretty realistic. What did you think about the pizza scene towards the end?
Now that I think of it, that was also a hard thing to watch. Not quite as hard as the end, but I like that.
What about the tampon swapping scene?
Oh man, they're bringing up all these horrible memories. That flows are terrible. Like, I'm pretty sure that would cause the septic shock.
Yeah, I think it's called toxic shock. But
Oh
anyway,
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what
yeah, that was a pretty difficult scene. But there's other scenes, like the scene when she just takes all of the produce from the fridge and like bathes with it. Like even that, it reminded
that was just weird to me.
it reminded me. It almost reminded me of Gummo. Like that. Like there's a lot of like wet, like bathtub things in this movie where everything looks dirty and wet and just really gross.
And like when the plant grew out of her,
Yeah.
that was also gross.
She put an avocado pit inside of her and a little avocado plant grew out of her.
Mm. Mm-hmm. 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 Yep.
I remembered there was a disclaimer before this movie, and I had to look it up real quick. And because this is based on a novel actually by Charlotte Roach, and there's like sort of this preface that says this book shouldn't be read or adapted to film. It's nothing more than a mirror of our sad society. Life has so much more to offer than the disgusting perversity of the human heart. We need God. And that was a letter to the editor.
And also, me and Chuckle every time she was like trying to get God in her life sarcastically, like with the statue. And then, that was a great scene too. With the statue and the blood
Yeah.
that she gets for herself. And puts it on the statue in public.
Yeah. There's some other bodily things going on in this too. There's some shit stuff that happens in it as well when she shit the bed, and also when her asshole essentially exploded into the doctor's face because she didn't treat so there was the anal fissure, but she didn't treat it. So it blistered over, and there was like a giant blister that had to be burst. And when it burst, it went all over the doctor's face.
Stuff like that makes me laugh.
Ryan has a very, very specific sense of humor.
Not blisters. Not swapping tampons.
It's tampon swapping too much, but asshole blister bursting in face. Gold.
That is his wheelhouse. Jesus. Good God.
Kevin, are you sold on this movie, Kevin?
No, I'm never watching this. Back when you first talked about it, I remember when we did the podcast and you were talking about it. And I was just immediately, I was like, never watching this, never happening. And now I'm hearing even more, and I'm just like, no, it's never in the history of my life is this going to happen.
It's pretty extreme, this movie. The thing about it is it's a really good movie. Like, it's great performances. Carla Yuri is so good in this as the main character, Helen, and the cinematography is really cool too, and it's got great music. It's a really great movie, aside from the really extreme gross out stuff that happens.
Yeah. I mean, I will have to take your word for it. I'm just going to assume I'm going to,
and that's fine.
I believe you. I believe you guys.
It's perfectly fine. I think at some point we should do some sort of contest or competition where if you lose, you have to watch Wetlands?
No.
What will
That
make
is
all the season and see who gets grossed up first by whatever.
I mean,
Like they see what we can handle.
well, this movie grossed me out right when they not even when she sat on the toilet at the beginning, but when they just showed the bathroom and her walking in her bare feet. Like that was it for me. I'm like, all right, I'm grossed out officially. And I saw this
there are a few scenes in this that I can look at the screen and look away.
I saw this in a theater. I saw it at Sundance, I think, and people were like audibly disgusted by this movie. People were just like, oh, like there were so many noises coming from the theater, and a bunch of people left. Like a lot of people, not a lot, but a handful of people, if I remember correctly, just had to leave the theater because they
I would be curious to see how this was received in Europe. Like how the Europeans feel about it. Like are they as grossed out? Or
I think so.
I would think so.
I'd be willing to bet that they're just as grossed out by this movie. I think this movie was, for releases in certain countries, I think it did have to get edited down quite a bit. Now, and frankly, I don't even know. I know it came out in the US at some point, but I'm not sure like what the release situation was in the US. But I know they had to have had a hard time getting this released in the United States, because I know there's like multiple versions of it. The version that you saw, obviously, was the uncut one, Ryan. After seeing Wetlands, are you interested in this director's other films, David Wendt? I'm probably mispronouncing his last name, by the way.
That's gross.
I've actually never seen any of his other movies. He's only done a few things. One thing that he's done that I'm aware of is I thought it was a TV show, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's a movie. Look Who's Back from 2015, where like Hitler comes back and he's living in.
He did that.
Yeah, he did that. I thought that was a show. I didn't realize that was a movie, or maybe they collected it. Am I misremembering that? Anyway, he did that where Hitler comes back in the 21st century. I was actually kind of interested in seeing that.
I would also be kind of into them. I love when people are put in the unpredictable situations, like people that like is a horrible war criminal and then horrible things, but would he be able to stand up to some of the gross shit nowadays?
You want Hitler to watch Wetlands?
Yes.
How would it? Oh my god. I find it interesting that it's a German movie it's a German comedy about Hitler. I didn't think that was something that they really could do there.
Oh, I assume he's trying to like blur the line between Hitler and all the bad shit he did.
He also did a movie called Combat Girls in 2011 that sounds pretty good. I haven't seen it. Most recently he did a movie called The Sunlit Night, which we talked about on our most anticipated episode. It was on my list last year.
I was gonna say it sounded familiar.
Yeah, it was on my most anticipated list last year for 2019, but it never came out. It played Sundance last year, never came out, and from what I read, the people that saw it said it's really bad. It seems it looks good, but I guess it's not good at all. But it's with Gillian Anderson, Jenny Slate, and Zach Galifianakis, so it's got a pretty solid cast there.
Yeah, it seems like that's a cast that would you would distribute that movie
Right.
regardless because of the cast. Like there's an audience
It
for those people.
it might just get dumped out on VOD or something this year. I don't know. I would be willing to bet that it'll pop up on something, some kind of streaming
It's
service or
got to.
something this year.
It's got to.
Even if it's a complete piece of crap, what does it cost a streaming service to put it up on their platform? Nothing.
Yeah.
All right, Ryan, let's give you your drum roll on Wetlands. What are you going to give it?
7.
7 out of 10.
Oh, wow. Wow.
It was a really cool movie. I mean, it was really fun, gross, but it was well made.
Completely agree with you there. Now,
I did like the camera trick and cinematography and stuff.
yeah, they did a lot of really cool camera stuff.
Yeah, it was stuff I never saw before.
There's a scene where they're like buying some weed from their weed guy, and their drug guy leaves his like can of drugs that has all these different types of drugs. He leaves it there by accident, and they end up consuming like, what was it, like 2,500 euros worth of drugs over the course of like several hours.
Some real number.
So there's a pretty fun, like, it's not a drug trip scene, sort of is, but they're just kind of going wild in Germany.
And then they pay the price.
Yeah.
Because they both get sick as shit.
Sure. Yeah, they definitely did. All right, what are you thinking about for next week, Ryan?
Horror.
Horror. All right.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. It's a little bit easier for us.
It's a lot easier, yeah.
Because I'm just saying, like, because of the last show, and I think, it's happened before, but anytime he says the teen sex comedy or sex comedy, it's just like, there's no options.
Yeah, I mean,
but I am surprised that Wetlands worked out.
So am I. I thought the German thing was going to be an immediate death sentence for that movie. So I'm really glad that it worked out.
I'll be honest. I thought it would be at first, but it wasn't.
Good. That's good.
When there's movies I get into, then I don't necessarily like subtitles still, but they're tolerable.
He was on the fence with the German stuff, but then it had those anal blisters that he enjoys, so he's fucking strapped in. He was ready. He's fucking weighing it. He has the whiteboard out with pros and cons.
We almost gave you Extreme Movie from, what was that, from like 2003 or something, and it stars Michael Cera and Kevin Hart.
I feel like I've seen that before.
You probably have.
You probably have.
Like some sort of like extortion movie.
There was just nothing. You saw everything. Like, as far as,
that's the thing. Like, anything that's good, you've seen, and you've also seen the ones that aren't good. And then everything else that's left, it's just absolute garbage.
Yeah, there's a lot of like 80s teen sex comedies, I think, that you haven't seen, but like pretty much all of the 90s and 2000s, you have that covered. Horror, on the other hand, there's a treasure trove there that we can tap into. Is there any kind of specific horror titles that you're looking for, like subgenre wise?
Anal blisters.
I would say Japanese, but I really have seen them, but I don't want subtitles.
I was about to say, you want to do back subtitles?
Yeah, I mean, like, sure? You just got done saying that subtitles really are not your thing, and then you're like, oh, I think I'd like a Japanese horror movie, please.
Africa makes some pretty fucked up shit, doesn't it?
Africa? You want an African horror movie?
You want an African horror movie?
They do some pretty fucked up shit.
Not more fucked up than other countries. I mean, like the French for a while were putting out some really fucked up stuff. But I think you saw probably most of the like French extreme horror movies that were coming out in the I guess that was maybe the early 2000s, like when Martyrs came out, and there were some of those other ones. What's that other one that I liked a lot? Frontiers, I think it was called. I mean, it's obvious you want something extreme. You want something over the top.
He just wants that fucked up shit.
I just don't want, like, there are many things in this that were too fucked up for me. Like this versus America Pie. This is fucking really gross.
Yeah. It's a
America Pie can handle.
You can handle the Jason Biggs pie fucking.
Yeah.
But the tampon swapping and that's too much. All right.
Too much.
So we'll
I would have made the person that says that's not too much.
Okay, so you want something really fucked up. You're thinking about world, like international horror, so you're looking for something outside of the US?
Yeah.
All right, I think that's going to do it for this week. Any closing remarks, Ryan?
No.
All right. Thank you so much for listening. You can send us your pics for Ryan to podcast@filmpulse.net. You follow us on Twitter @filmpulsenet, @filmpulsekevin, and @mylegsdon'twork. And if you have a minute, consider giving us a review on your podcast platform of choice. For Kevin Rakestraw and Ryan Holes, my name's Adam Patterson. We'll see you later.
Yeah.